South Africa has a lot of crime, and it gets broadcast on TV, sometimes irrationally, but that is what people in Europe are seeing. And the crime is certainly going up now with poverty increasing dramatically. We are hearing, how many break-ins there are, et cetera. And that was a challenge before, and it's going to be a challenge even more so now and in the future, because those jobs that have been lost, I doubt everybody will get that job back, because I think a lot of companies also purged their staff or made their reduced their numbers of people that they did not want to have because they didn't work properly. So the unemployment is increasing. What we both think may happen, but that's going to take a long time to change the mindset of independent travelers like the British, the Dutch, the Germans, who like to drive on their own and go from one guest house to the other, is to say it's not always safe on the roads anymore. People are being stoned on the roads, and to maybe consider doing a tour, a guided tour, with people who know what the situations can be like and who can read the situations and address things because they're just aware of what's happening. So I think that was a challenge that's going to be worse in the future. People are also worried that our health system is not good. So if they get sick here, what sort of hospital are they going to land in? They forget that we're a very westernized, very modern country. Especially the first-time travelers, they are often surprised at our infrastructure, and we have got some incredible hospitals, and they would go to those. But they don't know that beforehand. So the South African tourism, etc., have to get those fears out of the minds of potential travelers. And price is another huge challenge. I don't know what's going to happen in future because our inflation is really skyrocketing, but the hotels have now realized that they cannot be charging what they used to charge, or the lodges. And the problem is they have now instituted a multi-tier system of rates. So we have the SADC rates and the South African rates, which are sometimes a third less than what they used to be in the future. Now, how do you take that rate back to the initial rate, And the initial rate excluded all South Africans. No one could afford that initial rate. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, because I know foreign people are not always happy to know that the local people are paying X and they're paying Y, So you can argue that point. Our salaries are nowhere near European salaries, and it is our park, it is our museum, and a lot of countries have that issue, but it is something that doesn't sit well with foreign tourists often. And the world is a big place. South African tourism, or us in South Africa, forget that the traveler has got the whole world at its feet and can go anywhere. We think we're the only destination everyone wants to come to. So we're a little bit arrogant in that way. And there are a lot of places that have got conditions and prices that are a lot cheaper. They don't maybe have our wildlife and our landscape, but there are a lot of beautiful places around the world. So, and we've learned our lesson in the past. If we get greedy, people stay away. And I fear that may happen as well. Now, your turn.
Okay, I see. Well, I'm not saying to see it from a different. I have a different view, or possibly a different view. I think South Africa, generally, there's too much of a divide between the poor, the masses, and probably the hotel operators or the people in tourism. There's a connotation, and we're now we have paid the price during lockdown, where the government hasn't supported white industry at all. They're only supporting black industry, and even so, very small amounts into tourism. They see no value in the tourism sector. they see it as predominantly white-run, white-managed, and white profiteers as such. So they don't see the money being distributed. Prior to lockdown, one tourist salary, depending on where in the country, would normally support 8 heads in Cape Town area and 12 heads in the rest of the country. So one salary supports 8 to 12 people, dependent on where you are in the country. African people, yeah, sorry. And that's a shocking statistic. I mean, there was a very good program on BBC about La Residence Hotel in Franschhoek that charges 30,000 rand a night for a room, or maybe even more. And the florist was getting 4,000 rand in salary a month. You know, it's the disproportionate, the gap between rich and poor in South Africa still needs to be closed a lot more. COVID has unfortunately hurt the poor, the man in the streets, so that he's never had a chance, that people don't have savings. They don't. I mean, we had a gentleman yesterday who had an accident. They have no health insurance. If something goes wrong, they have nothing. Now that COVID's happened, there's, we were taking food to our staff in their areas when we weren't allowed to travel because they don't have anything. There's no supermarkets there. They don't have savings for a rainy day. From the impact that COVID's had on the country is going to be, I think it'll be long run. We're going to see this for a long time now. It's, there will be longevity to poverty as such. It's not all doom and gloom, but what we do is very tiny, but like with our guiding, if you can uplift someone and give them a little bit more knowledge, so we won't employ guides, we hire guides, because then that gives them an opportunity to work for 20 people. They don't have to be working for us on a minimum salary. So it gives them much more exposure. And it would be nice to see the government starting to do more schemes. They do very much, the government's guilty of giving them 2-year courses, and they go away and they get a nice little diploma when they finish the 2 years. We have a gentleman who's just finished being a mechanic, or almost finished being a motor mechanic, and he did a 2-year tourism course. He was never ever, he knows nothing about tourism. He hasn't got the personality for it, anything. It was a waste of time and money to see him doing that. It would be better if they had better courses. So we need more structure in our tourism, a lot more structure. And I agree with a lot of the black Africans. There are very wealthy whites sitting at the top of the food chain, and there's a lot of people at the bottom, and we need to fill that gap and educate people through those gaps. Anyway, sorry, that's my...
But I have some questions about this for later, but how do you think we can, because you were mentioning, the fact that we need to improve the education, especially for the people at the lower, let's say the lower level. I don't like to use these expressions, but so they can, uplift their expertise and their life in the tourism sector. So if these tourism courses that does not produce the positive impacts they are supposed to produce, how can we improve them in order to make a better contribution to the field and to the life of those people? Because that's what we are talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, Trevor just had to let the dog out. She's been sick. That's the other change of COVID. We suddenly all...
I adopted a cat because of COVID.
Us as well. We now have all of them listening to you, Francesca. They all...
If they want to participate, they are welcome.
A big challenge is that the government doesn't realize how absolutely important tourism is, and the amount of money that is generated through tourism, and how many African people need that job. They're the waitresses, they're the people cleaning the hotel rooms, etc., etc. But they are you know, the challenge that